there's a whole lot of things which are also exempted from disclosure. And I would especially draw your intelligence to intelligence and security agencies are exempt under Section 24. Intelligence and security agencies are organizations like our paramilitary forces, our CRPF, our BSF, and so forth. I don't feel that they need to be kept exempt as insofar as long as the army is not kept exempt, but they have been kept exempt. But where it's a question of a violation of human rights or corruption, even these organizations are not exempt. It's only that the level at which they dealt is a higher level. The public information officer, who is the officer responsible for giving information as I described to you, is not the one who can give this information. It's the Information Commission which can order that such information must be given. And third-party information is released only after the third party is informed that the third party has to concur. And importantly, information which cannot be denied to the Parliament or the state legislature shall not be denied to any person. Now, there is information which is held by the Parliament, which is not disclosable to Parliament. That's committee information. Deliberations of the committee in our Indian Parliament are not disclosable to the Parliament unless the committee itself decides that it should be so disclosed. But if it can be disclosed to Parliament, it has to be disclosed also to the public. The next is, what can any individual complain about? A citizen of India, he can complain. The Central Information Commission, that I told you, the final court of appeal, a person can complain that he's been refused access to information. He can complain about how the public authority has treated him, and failure to respond to this request within the specific time, and failure to give the proper advice and help. All these are mandated by the Indian law. And failure to give the information in the form it was asked for. So you cannot obfuscate, you cannot use the old bureaucratic technique of providing a lot of information without giving any real information. And failure to properly explain the reasons for the refusal of the information. So when you refuse the information, you also have to give reasons, because those reasons are justiciable before the superior authority. Then there are penalties. Penalties can be laid down if information is not given or if misleading information is given. And this has been used sparingly. This has been used sparingly. The citizens activists are very angry about the fact that it has been used sparingly. It should be used, they feel it should have been used much more quickly. I don't know, I was one of those who did not, I of course was one of those who I think opposed more penalties than my colleagues. But I oppose it very, very sparingly. This is an issue that can be argued. Should it be used more liberally? Should you impose more penalty? My view was that the threat of penalty was much stronger than the actual use of penalty. But then again, this is a matter that can be discussed and argued. Then there's the question of access. Access, next, is universal, except of course that it is only open to citizens of India. But then it's open to citizens of India in such a manner that even anybody else can, through a citizen of India, actually access the information he or she needs. But in making this universal, it has to be ensured that it is also the machinery exists for allowing that. And therefore, every postmaster has been made an assistant public information officer. Therefore, you can go to a post office and give your request for information, and that then gets you the information. And this has been working. So these, right down at the district level, at the tehsil level, you have availability of personnel to actually give you that kind of access. It's supposed to be available. In actual fact, it is not always there, which accounts for the fact that you often have agitation in this matter. And if a person is illiterate, that person is to be assisted by the public information officer. Again, something that has not happened. And they have found in certain studies that have been made, I've discussed that in my paper in 2008, that 40% of the persons who asked for information in India in 2008 were people who were actually illiterate. 40% of the millions who actually asked for information. I suspect that percentage has even gone higher now. Because now there is greater, more widespread awareness of this law. The next point is on the responsibilities of public authorities. These I will not spend much time on, except to say that maintaining, cataloguing, indexing, and computerizing and networking records is the responsibility of public authorities, which they have not really lived up to fully in the manner that its economic growth has averaged a high percentage level. Employment growth has not grown at the same pace as it should have grown. Why is that? How is that? That answers will come through the right to information. Health, the regional, the socio-economic, the caste and gender disparities. These exist all over the country, but these are not really known. And therefore, if you don't know them, how to remedy them. Then on the question of center-state fiscal relations, on the question of public-private partnership and the institutional framework, the access to justice, the national security versus social security, all these are areas which can be answered through the right to information and therefore strengthens all those who otherwise suffer. On the question of national security versus social security, an issue which would be of interest to you would be the question that we have raised now as the National Commission of Minorities on persons arrested on so-called terror charges who have later on been found to be innocent. And these cases are now becoming more and more available to the public eye. And it will be interesting to note that in a recent study conducted by the Hindu newspaper, they have found that 40% of the people who were actually canvassed have recognized the fact that people who have been arrested on these terrorist charges were actually innocent. They've realized that. So this kind of information, having become is benefiting this class of person. Then, if I may go to the next point, it is public awareness and educational programs. The government is the organization expected to promote public awareness. This again is something that has not really happened. The government has got good programs to promote awareness in their own organization, inside government, inside those who are dispensing the law, but not in generating awareness among the public, with the result that the public's use of this law has not necessarily always been ideal. And therefore you have these accusations of misuse of the law. But the key to the success of this law really lies in how it is used at the grassroots level, and therefore that is where Panchayati Raj comes in. I see the Panchayati Raj institutions as a unique institution when it comes to e-governance for the following reasons: the primacy of the Gram Sabha and its impact on the Gram Panchayat, and the benefits to citizens flowing from over-the-counter services, right at the village level. I mentioned to you that this is designed to be an institution of self-government. And therefore, through that, the public comes to know all that's going on in the government, in the state government, at the state government level, at the Government of India level, at the district level. And the public is in a position to actually respond to that. So that is what I regard as the key. I've given a chart as to how it would work, how the information would flow. That citizens as a group, citizens as individuals, how they can feed in and get benefits from this system. Next. So therefore the Gram Sabhas, the Gram Sabha is in fact the collection of all the voters among the villagers, and is therefore the bottom level of the legislative authority. There, the Gram Sabha is the one that decides what the Gram Panchayat will do. And therefore, that's at the lowest level of legislature in the country, or it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, it's not quite worked like that. It is supposed to be working like that, and these are the benefits that would come from the services of the Gram Sabhas. Then I'll just give you a brief run-up of where this law has been, its evolution. It is now there, operational in every state, including the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which of course you know doesn't come under the Constitution of India and has a constitution of its own. But that case state also came up with a law, in fact before the national law, but again a very weak law, and it's come up with a law based on the national law in 2009, and therefore all the states, all the country, the entire country is covered by this law. Thank you very much, and thank you for this.
And as I sat listening to you, I thought that there were three parts to the actual availability of information. One is, of course, the law. By the way, in Pakistan, we have this law which has just expired, I believe, because we have not renewed it. And we have all kinds of good laws in Pakistan, by the way. The second part is the implementing machinery, the commission. But I think the third and the most important in this context is the attitude of the civil servant or the government departments. I mean, you can go to them and say that I represent the commission and I want this information made available. But he will say, I won't make it available to you. And you go and do what you like. So I want to know from you, sir, what is your assessment of that area, of how the officialdom reacts to the demand for information? Thank you.
Yes, a very good day. That it should. There are many areas where it has not gone to where to the extent that it should be designed to go, and the reason for that is because of the lack of attitudinal change. A lot of attitudinal change has taken place. As I mentioned to you earlier, even a person like myself felt that it was our duty to protect information which is held by the government. Now the realization is there that you have to give information if it is asked for. It's not the commission will come, the individual will come. If you don't give the information, then that person will go to the commission and complain that so-and-so is not giving the information. The commission can impose penalty or summon you for a hearing and chastise you or whatever they can do. But the question which arises is that trying to avoid giving the correct, you give information, but don't give the correct information. Give it in a devious fashion so it doesn't actually answer the question. At the same time, it protects the information. Government servants are quite expert at doing such things. In fact, I often, when I give my speeches on these matters, I said when I was trained, we were not trained in our IAS academy in relation to the answers to questions in Parliament, because that is a major challenge we were trained in how to answer. The training meant that we were trained to give a long answer without giving any information. So that attitude informs us, and that's why I said to start with that we have an imperial structure for the bureaucracy trying to work within a democratic framework. The government has never really addressed that issue, and therefore has not brought about reforms in administration in keeping with the demands of an administrative society. It only adjusted the administration. The administration only adjusted to the demands of a modern democratic society. And therefore, our democracy, as any democracy, is always full of many imperfections. But the right to information, in my view, has greatly strengthened the ability of the individual to actually access information, which ability he did not have earlier, because I mentioned the courts have held And there has been in this court of the Supreme Court ruling which I gave in 1975. Since then, the access has not improved substantially at all. Only now has it started improving because of the fact that there is a law which is only an instrument to actually make the, you mentioned of course that you've got lots of good laws. We also have what we regard as very good laws. But they don't work because the actual implementation, how to access those, how to exercise that authority, that is not there. And the right to information helps to bridge that gap. But you're perfectly right, and that is why I had mentioned that the government is not doing enough to actually promote awareness and responsibility under that. But now, because of the law, there has been, because of the interface, NGOs are quite strong in India. The government may dismiss them as somewhat irritable, but the fact is that they do have voice, and they can work through Parliament and actually have their voices heard. So, because of that, there is a realization that information has to be given. But then, as I said, there are those who would like to avoid it. There's also the attitude of somebody saying that, oh, whatever the person asks, just give that information, forget about any restrictions. And that way, information should not have been given out, has also been given out. Because there are those who feel, "Ab chodo bhai, ab kya jhagda karna hai? Why should I get myself in trouble? I'll have to pay a penalty, I can't appear in the papers, but I just give it." That has also happened. So this also has to be guarded against.
Thank you.
Okay, Tahiraji first.
Thank you. My name is Tahira Abdullah, and I belong to that amorphous group that likes to call itself civil society, as distinct from civil servants. Thank you so much for such a frank and justifiably proud exposition. I am most of all interested, actually I'm interested in all your points and your entire presentation, but I think that which would be of most benefit to us in Pakistan as we go about reactivating our currently dormant law is the bit about exemptions. The Official Secrets Act is exactly the same applicable in Pakistan as it is in India. But I think your law expands and enhances the definition and enlarges the definition of what constitutes the integrity, the security, strategic interests, economic interests. I mean, it's everything but the kitchen sink is in there. And so if anyone wished to withhold information, that could be used as it has been used in Pakistan since the year 2000. We've had a freedom of expression, freedom of information, etc. It's now very much in our, not just in the Constitution, the original Constitution, it's also in the 18th Constitutional Amendment, which was 2010. So we have very similar sorts of fundamental rights and principles of policy, etc. But then comes the Official Secrets Act and the exemptions. So could you tell us a little bit more about how we can go about get around the exemptions?
Exemptions issue.
My question is regarding very interesting point that you made about the record not being there and nobody is being responsible for creating any new record. So what if, as we know, most of the corruption takes place when the record is not being kept. In Pakistan there have been so many corruption cases, but nobody was punished because the record is not there. And the law does not stipulate anything about creating that record. So who is responsible when some corruption or unethical practice takes place, but the record is not there and nobody is responsible for creating that? Number one. And number two, when the information is the record is transferred from one person to another person, and the access to information is sought, it is not usually sought immediately. It is after 2-3 years that you seek some information. And the person is transferred and the person is not responsible who's sitting there, he's saying somebody else was there. So is there any law which says that if the record is not there, even then somebody is responsible?